97.9% voted in favor of the strike, which is a huge number. So they are now on strike, sort of in solidarity with the writers, but also because they're working with their own issues around AI. Obviously, SAG has had an issue with people being misrepresented, like their likeness being put in a movie, but the actor not being paid for it for a while. It happened specifically and got legislated against when it happened with Crispin Glover on Back to the Future 2. So if you don't remember, in Back to the Future 2, that character appears in the future hanging upside down from something and with old person makeup. And basically they couldn't reach a contract agreement with Crispin Glover. So they just used somebody who kind of looks like him, hung him upside down in this floating thing and put old people makeup on him. So then you couldn't really tell and you just did an impression. And so obviously Crispin Glover was like, what the fuck? If you can't just decide like I cost too much and then you're like, oh, well, whatever. We'll use someone who just looks like you. That's completely not okay. It's using someone's likeness against their will. So it's like how I spoke to Sean Young about when her appearance as her younger self in Blade Runner 2049. Like, she got paid for that. She didn't do a goddamn thing, but they had to pay her because it's her likeness. That happened because of what Crispin Glover sued for. So that is now a rule. So it's something, again, they've been screwed over before with people using, with studios and producers using performers' likeness. So it's very, very likely that this would happen again right away with AI. And as we all know, people will do something and if they get sued, then fine, it is what it is. It's a speed bump. But they will go ahead and start doing it right away as soon as the technology is there. So it makes sense the SAG would want to get in front of this and be like, right now, we need to stop artificial intelligence, because the amount of reproduction of voices especially that can happen are unprecedented. I saw an article recently. I can actually pull this up. This is relevant to it. AI is being used to supercharge phone scams with the cloned voices of your relatives. Okay? This is already a service that's being provided to people as like a method of helping people with grief. You can actually have conversations with your loved ones, which is a whole thing I would not want to do. I think that's pretty gross as someone who just had a loved one die. But whatever helps you, great. But regardless, it is to the point where, like, you can have an exact replica of someone's voice. So imagine you want, like, I don't know, pick a famous voice. James Earl Jones. You want James Earl Jones' voice to do a McDonald's voiceover ad, doing the ba 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 ba. You could do that for free using AI. And unless there's a real precedent or some rules in usage contracts for not being able to use AI, then they're going to get screwed over, and people are going to do that. Like, I remember when Harrison Ford, like when they did freaking Blade Runner, they did the first Blade Runner. So the studio felt like nobody would follow it, and so they decided to force them to do voiceover. And you could tell in the voiceover that Harrison Ford he doesn't want to do it. He hates doing it. But they had to do it because the studio forced it, and that's why there's like 1,000 different edits of it that don't have the voiceover. But yeah, imagine if they didn't even have to, the studio didn't even have to run it by anybody, and they just used an AI algorithm to create voiceover for the movie. Because unless the director explicitly has like final edit, that stuff can happen.